you like trains? Want to start a model railway? But not sure where to begin? You need a starter set. How about we open the box and set it up?
Starter sets. Starter sets, starter sets, starter sets, and more starter sets. I recommend them. Why do I recommend them? Well, funnily enough, most things start with a starter set. Most railways, most people start with a starter set. I started with a starter set. It was the Goods Master starter set. I don't think it's available now, but it was by Hornby, and it was that little set that got me back into the hobby. No, I don't seem to be able to see it. I can't see it now, but it was very similar to one of these. In fact, yes, if we go back to 2009, you can see that there is the set that got me back into the hobby. That little £70 box of trains, featuring a really basic little 040 loco and a few wagons, was just enough to get me into the hobby again and make me spend thousands and thousands on loads of track and loads of trains and indeed a new layout. So that is the power of starter sets, and that's why I recommend them. And it doesn't matter what starter sets you get. You can get starter sets by Hornby, you can get starter sets by Bachmann, you can even start with a HO starter set by an American company or German company or Japanese company. It doesn't matter. They're all as powerful as each other. They're just enough to get you hooked and get you into the hobby, and they're a great way to get into the hobby. I mean, just look at this. That's beautiful. You get a lovely little pannier tank loco there in a livery that's often exclusive to a starter set, and they do that deliberately. They do that very often in order to make people that are serious hardcore collectors buy the starter sets. And I'll grant you, not all of them are starter sets. Yeah, if we go back to the Hornby catalogue, you'll see that there are a few in here. I mean, just look at that. The British Pullman, I mean, that's not really a starter set. It's, well, it's very expensive, it's quite exquisite, and those two, they're their starter sets. The Flying Scotsman is probably the most famous starter set there is, but basically, as soon as a train set, oh, look at that, the Cornishman, That is just exquisite. As soon as this train set gets to that sort of level, you know, where it's maybe £200 or even £300 or $400-500 or whatever, then it's not really a starter set. It's more of a fancy train set. But if it's bought as your first set, then it technically is, I suppose, and it's probably going to be enough to get you into the hobby. But I would recommend that you start with something small. If you're new to all this, or you're buying it for your son, and you're going to start building a layout together, start with something small. I don't know if I'd start with something quite that small. That's a little bit extreme. I'm surprised it even comes with a logo. But yeah, something like that, that's a bit better. The Flying Scotsman, obviously, I mean, that's a classic. People keep asking me when am I going to do the Flying Scotsman, but I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think it needs any more attention, to be honest. I mean, you know, there are aliens out there in the galaxy that know about the Flying Scotsman. I don't think they need me to do it. And then, of course, you've got the Pendolino in its new livery. Again, people have been asking me, am I going to get that? No, I already have one Pendolino, and that's fine, thank you. I don't want to start doubling up on trains. There are others I want first. You've just seen a Blue Rapier. The review on that will be coming up. The Eurostar, it's not bad. Again, people keep asking me, am I going to get the Eurostar? But not really, because, well, it runs in just one tiny little corner of the country, and it's the opposite corner to where I am basing my layout, so it's very unlikely. But just look at that. I mean, that's exquisite. I don't care where that runs. That is just such a beautiful train. I would love to have it. So when you are thinking about a starter set, don't worry too much about what it is. Don't worry too much about how much it is. Or just get what you can afford and go for it. Set it up, run some trains around, see if you like it. Maybe buy another starter set to accompany it. So you've got more track. You can actually start to do some operations, which is very important. So you can have shunting, and you can have like passenger trains come in and then go out again, and you can actually start to make it look like a little miniature railway. And as I say, even Bachmann do starter sets. So if you want to start a set by Bachmann, then you can do that too, because they do them. They do ones that are clearly designed for kids, right up to ones which are designed for adults and more older children who are careful enough to not damage all the, you know, the delicate details on the models and stuff. But yeah, they're lovely. They're lovely sets, and I have looked at a Bachmann one too. I didn't have very much luck with it, actually. It turned out to be a bit faulty, but it was replaced, it was fixed, and everything was fine. So you know, that happens. That's mass production for you. But I do recommend the starter sets. I can't emphasize that enough. And there'll be people shouting at the monitor or the screen or the iPad or whatever now, telling me about how rubbish they are and stuff because you get such basic little locos. Well, yes, you do. I mean, this was my first loco, basically. Well, it wasn't, but it was my first loco since getting back into the hobby. My first loco was a Class 58, which was back in 1986. But yeah, I was talking about this little shunter, which is very basic. I mean, just look at the detail on it. There really isn't anything fancy or special about it. But that's not a reason to not get it. That's not a reason to put you off buying a starter set. You can always put locomotives like this, and indeed models like this, to good use. You can weather them up. You can make them look really grimy. If you wanted, you could even take the motor out or whatever and make it look dead rusty, and just dump it over on one side of the layout so that it looks like it's been abandoned and stuff. And if you want to keep it active, then as I say, you can just weather it up a bit, make it look more realistic. You can even buy transfer kits to renumber it. You can buy additional accessories and details to make it look more realistic. Or alternatively, you can just put it in a glass cabinet and never look at it, never use it again. It's up to you, but there are things you can do with them. Obviously, that's a diesel. You get steam locomotives like this as well, this little furnace railway one, which is not a bad little model. It's not bad at all. And again, it can be weathered, it can be made to look grimy, it can be made to look really realistic. And so I really recommend you get them. And then of course, you get really basic locomotives like this. I mean, this is extreme. I think the next stop after this is basically Fisher-Price or something made out of wood. This is very basic, but it's reliable. It runs. I can't fault how reliable it is and how well it runs on the track. So it's great in that sense, because if you're buying it for your son or your daughter and it's their first railway, then they're going to have hours and hours of fun, because it will perform very well. It will do the job. And then once they grow up, once they get older, they can weather it. They can make it look grimy. They can make it look more realistic, and they can make it fit in and be part of their layout. It doesn't have to be shunned to one side and never used again. And then of course there are starter sets like the I think it's the Royal Scot. I don't know if it's in this 2009 one, going back quite a few years, but there was a set called the Royal Scot. I'm sure there was. Yes, see, there you go. It's a huge 2-page spread. Now that is possibly, well, it's the most extreme, it's the most amazing starter set I've ever had. And that came with a locomotive like this. Just look at this locomotive. If I just hook its tender on the back, look at that. I mean, this is huge. That is amazing. This is a Princess Coronation class, also known as a Duchess, because lots of them were Duchess of this, Duchess of that. But it is a Princess Coronation, non-streamlined, or de-streamlined, whichever the case may be. And it's an exquisite locomotive. You even get some detail there in the cab. It's absolutely stunning. It's definitely not something you'd expect to get in a starter set, but it was a very deluxe starter set, basically. And so, you know, locomotives like that you cannot complain about at all. There's nothing wrong with them. They're really nice. And to get all of that track and all of those coaches and a controller all thrown into the same package, it's excellent. It's everything you need. It gets you going. It gets you off the mark, so to speak. And then you can buy another starter set and another starter set, and you can buy some expansion packs. Make a trip to your local model shop. Buy a locomotive on its own. Buy some coaches on their own. Buy some wagons on their own. And before you know it, you'll be drawing up plans for a layout, and your whole model railway will just be taking off and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So apologies at this point to your bank manager or to whoever manages your finances, because it's not a cheap hobby. If you're going to start down this route, just get what you can afford, when you can afford it, and most importantly, enjoy it.
Having fun? Want to make it bigger and have even more fun? But not sure how? You need to design a layout.